Somehow I came up with this really interesting idea to read Bloodborne fan fiction. I don't know how I thought this would be a good video idea, but I already recorded all of the voiceover, and I it's it's a lot. It's a lot. So here it is. Enjoy. The hunter wakes on something softer than she has felt in a long time, a very long time, the area around her barely light enough to see her surroundings. Was I kidnapped again? She thinks to herself, before she hears footsteps along with a tap that sounds different from the footsteps. She slowly sits up, her side sore, but she can finally focus her eyes on the area around her. She was in a small bed, covered in magenta sheets and blankets with small pillows behind her. The room doesn't have much inside of it, furniture-wise, but there are small bits of things that show life around the room. Scattered books, half-burnt candles, clothes rumpled on a chair in the corner. She turns her head and sees someone much more beautiful than she's ever seen since she's arrived at Yarnum. He's slightly smaller than her, but thin, lithe, and has curly strawberry blonde hair that falls around a soft feminine face. He has plush lips and bright green eyes, and he's holding a cane in his right hand, leaning against the door frame and watching her gently. She notices that his pupils are starting to expand, but he looks cognizant. "Ah, you're awake now," the man says, and the hunter's eyes widen to hear the deep voice of Gilbert. "Sorry to have surprised you." This is the first time seeing Gilbert in the flesh, considering how foggy and warped his window is. She only notices her change in clothes, these ones considerably more masculine smelling, and tighter on her chest and hips. She has bandages wrapped around her stomach and legs where she had taken the brunt of her attacks, but the blood seems to have faded. "Where am I?" she asks, moving her line of sight from her bandages back to the unfairly attractive man in front of her. "My home. I took you in when you collapsed back in front," he answers, walking to the bedside and sitting on the edge, setting his cane to the side. "I thought you had died in front of me. I was petrified. He doesn't know that I will reawaken," the hunter thinks to herself, but doesn't mention out loud, not wanting to appear ungrateful for the kindness that Gilbert had given her. "I'm sorry to have intruded upon you," she says, moving her legs to step off the mattress while wincing in pain. If she could just go to the lamp, she'd be healed completely, and not have to worry about bothering this kind man. "You did not, ma'am, and you'd better continue to rest up. Your wounds are deep, and you've lost a lot of blood. I don't have much healing here, but I can watch over you while you heal," he says, putting his large and thin hands on her shoulders to push her back onto the bed with what little strength he has. "I'm not letting you out of here until you're well. You frightened me out there, and I do not want you to have to turn up dead when you're the only one who can talk to me in this cursed place." Ah, right. He has no companion here, the hunter reminds herself. Eventually, she allows him to care for her wound by lifting her blouse to just under her breast and giving him room to work on the deep claw marks that are slowly scabbing over. They're still deep, but he can see where her flesh is mending itself together. She'll have scars, but a lady of her state is not affected by superficial marks such as these. He's noticed her beauty more in the days they've spent together, especially considering how casually she has dressed while staying in his home. She's likely stuck to wearing his shirts and her regular hunter trousers, and the sight of and the sight has had an effect on him. The creases in her face give her a mature feeling, and she's fond of letting down her dark curls so they bunch around her angular face. Her smile lines are more pronounced when her plump lips smile, and her eyes seem to sparkle when she laughs. He's very fond of her presence and does not look forward to when she leaves to continue the hunt. She will go off to God's nowhere and meet creatures that will do much more harm to her, and he can't follow her to make sure that she stays safe. An emotion he can't name runs through him at the thought of her alone, in pain, possibly at death's door. He wishes that he wasn't so weak and his body wasn't such a liability, so he could travel with her, make sure she's well. But he's stuck in this tiny home that reeks of incense and echoes the sounds of beasts crying in the city. "Gilbert?" she asks, most likely because his hands have stilled on her stomach when he's supposed to be healing her properly. "Are you alright?" He could say he's alright, that the dust in the room is what's causing his eyes to water. He finds it hard to lie, though, her light blue eyes focusing deep on his. "I'm worried, ma'am," he says, throwing caution to the wind. "I'm worried about you dying on me out there." A strange look passes over her face after he says this, but she smiles and lifts a hand to place it gently on his cheek. Her hand is warm, so comforting in the damp, cold place he has spent the last few years of his life withering away in. "I promise not to die on the hunt," she says, her voice soft and gentle, feeling like a hug around him. "I understand your worry, though." "What do you mean?" "I worry about you dying on me when I leave." Her voice feels honest, raw. "I worry I will come and knock on your window and you won't answer. That you'll die alone in here on this awful night." He can't remember if anyone has worried about him like this before. Ever since he stepped in Yarnum, the memories he has had of the outside world and his past are vague and hard to piece together. When he talks to her about his life, it's always things he's sure of. Memories of this cold town that took him in when he searched for a cure. Her warm hand makes his heart beat faster, and the worried look in her eyes betrays the small smile she gives him. "I can't promise you I won't die," he says before he can stop himself. "I know," she says, lowering her hand from his cheek and leaving him cold where it once was. "That's why I have a proposition for you." "Can I finish this first so you can look proper again?" he asks, trying to delay the sinking feeling in his gut. She laughs and his heart races again. He finishes her bandages as fast as he reasonably can before fetching one of the few blood vials he has left. He hates to watch her inject herself with it, the practice much more gruesome than the way he has always used it. Once they finish, she sits in front of the fire as he takes his normal place in the chair that sits in front of the window. "You've told me of safe places in this hellhole," she starts, not looking at him, but staring deeply into the fire. "When I find one, I want you to come with me." Now she turns her eyes towards him, bright with conviction and that stubborn look he's come to know well. "I don't think I could make it there, whatever it may be," he says, chest burning as hot as the fire. "You know how difficult it is for me to walk. And the beasts out there, they would kill me before I got near." Her eyes burned into him, and he wished he wasn't so weak and frail. Maybe he could have had a different life with the hunter, one where she wasn't concerned every time his breathing was slightly shallow. "I will bring you there, wherever it is," she says, voice firm. "I will not let you perish in this awful place." He wished he could believe her. He wanted to throw himself in her arms and trust her to protect him. But he couldn't. She was too strong to be brought down by a burden like him. What would he even bring to her? Nothing but tragedy and heartache. "Trust me, Gilbert. I will take care of you." The hunter did not want to leave Gilbert. She knew he would be safe from the beasts outside, due to the window bars and the incense protecting him, but she could not guarantee that he would survive until she found a safe place. She needed to fight the beast on the bridge and find a place Gilbert had told her about. Every cough, every groan in pain that she heard from the smaller man would send a chill through her, a spike through her heart that she hadn't felt in a long time. She was almost fully healed now and had no excuse to stay behind. She had intruded on him for long enough, and she had a task here that she was given. Even though she had only come to Yharnam for a cure, she was a hunter now, and she needed to finish this task. Something was wrong with this town, and she needed to uncover why it was like this. This man, though, he called to her, and she couldn't ignore the warmth in her chest when he would smile. She couldn't ignore how much her chest ached in pain when she thought about the possibility of coming back to seeing him dead or changed into a beast himself. It was harder and harder to ignore these feelings, even if she wanted to. Hunters don't have time to feel affection for another person. She didn't have time to care for someone as deeply as she wished to care for this man. But she did. Gilbert couldn't really say he was enjoying himself as he sat by the window, but there was something relaxing settling into his bones. He felt filled with the sense of a protective incense, and Yharnam was quieter than usual. The hunter was in another room, but Gilbert could hear her moving around, small sounds of life in his otherwise quiet home. He felt at peace. As he flipped casually through a book he had read before but enjoyed reading, he heard the hunter step into the room, her energy filling the room and the smell of hunters taking over the incense. Many people complained about the scent of hunters, but Gilbert enjoyed it. The scent was like copper, but with underlying notes of rain and earth. He looked up from his book to the hunter, as he usually enjoyed doing. It was usually when she wasn't aware of it, when she was distracted by something, and he could truly enjoy looking at her without fear of embarrassment. She came into the room with a determined look on her face, something that Gilbert had gotten used to seeing in her stubborn moments. She was dressed down, only wearing one of Gilbert's looser shirts and trousers. Her hair was down, as it was often during this day, curls flowing gently around her shoulders and framing her face. I'm okay. Madame, Gilbert says, calling out to her. Her expression is complex, reading stubborn, but also soft, and he is worried. Are you all right? I have to go, Gilbert, she says, her voice quiet, and it feels like his chest is going to collapse. He knew this was coming, but he still doesn't feel ready. I was given a task as a hunter, and I need to complete it. I understand, ma'am, he says, trying to will his voice to be even and not convey the emotions he was feeling. Please stay safe out there. If you need me, I'll be here. She slowly makes her way over to him, hips swaying slightly, and Gilbert doesn't know where to keep his eyes on the woman in front of him. He's gotten used to her presence as she has stayed with him, but her beauty still made his chest ache when he least expected it. Gilbert, she says, coming close to him until the larger body traps Gilbert in his chair, her strong legs around his smaller, lithe ones. I have to go. He wasn't sure how to respond, especially when she leaned down, trapping him with her arms set against the wall behind him. Before I go, I have to do something, she whispers, accent thicker than usual, and he felt her breath on his face, on his neck, making his stomach coil tightly. If you don't want this, push me away, and I will never try again. I promise on my life. Gilbert doesn't know if he would have the strength to do so in his life, but he nods in agreement, stomach tense. He doesn't know how to respond when he crashes her lips against his, all soft and hard at the same time. He didn't know that he even wanted this. But now that she was so carefully taking his lips and taking his heart, He couldn't even think of pushing her away. He felt settled, like something clicked inside him, and that hadn't clicked before. She separated from him, leaving his mouth damp and warm in her wake. "Ma'am," Gilbert starts before the hunter interrupts. "Eliza," she whispers, voice thick with emotion. "Call me Eliza. Please, Gilbert." "Eliza," Gilbert responds, and Eliza shakes in response, her shoulders stiff. "Gilbert, please, tell me if you want me to stop." She sounds desperate, like her life is on the line, and he understands. "Eliza," he breathes, the name tasting new in his mouth. "What?" I need, please, kid." Oh God. "Please kiss me." He's not proud of how much his voice wavers, how much he can feel the need to have her just in his voice, but he can't control the way she affects him. She takes the hint quickly, crashing her lips into his once again with passion. She's leaning over him, arms still on the wall behind him, as she's slowly devouring his lips, opening him up and taking him apart. He slings his arms around her back, tightening to bring her down to his level. After a moment, she seems to realize his intentions and bends her knees. She rests her legs on the outside of his thighs, trapping him in her power, and thinks he would swoon if he was standing. Once she's settled, bottom resting on his knees, she takes over again, kissing him, opening his mouth gently this time, like she has all the time in the world with him. She runs her hands through his curls, nails scraping lightly at his scalp, and the pressure from her thighs and bottom making his stomach coil. His groin is responding despite how much he tries to stop himself. He tightens his grip on Eliza's shirt, which causes her to open her mouth on his. A moan Gilbert can't stop his responding groan. His cock hardening in his pants even more. She takes her mouth away from his and works on nibbling his jawline. What the fuck? Do people do that? And working down to gently bite at his neck, pulling moans from the man easily. She shudders with every one, muscles in her legs clenching around him. As she devours his neck slowly, he forces himself to speak. "Eliza," he whimpers, arms barely holding onto her back at this point. "Eliza, if you..." What is it?" she whispers, at his Adam's apple breath moist. "If you want more, I need, please, the bed." He hates how he can't get his voice out properly, how turned on and taken apart he already is, but he doesn't want to break their privacy. He doesn't want to smell the incense that is way too strong next to him. He wants to only feel and taste the woman in front of him. If we're going to continue, do you want to I'll skip that sentence. Eliza whispers into his ear, ripping a moan from the man yet again. "Do you want to smell..." She raises herself from his lap, standing in front of him with a look that's a mix of fondness and arousal that he wants to drown in. He goes to try and lift himself out of the chair to match her, but his arms are weak, and he can't lift himself the way he wants to. Before he has a chance to even process the emotion he feels, her arms wrap around his chest, lifting him easily. He feels lightweight in her arms as she shuffles him, resting him in her arms like a bride. She feels himself blush at this action, but her loving and seductive gaze distracts him from trying to get out of her arms. They arrive at the room, and Eliza kicks the door closed behind her, the noise surprising Gilbert out of his stupor. She walks next to the bed and puts him down gently, hand flowing through his hair, causing him to shiver. He's still just as hard, but he feels less desperate now, having her touch around him cool his mind. She slowly undresses him, kissing his skin As she disrobes him and feels utterly worshipped by this woman. She takes her time with him until he's finally fully naked in front of her, shaking and red in the face. He's not used to being looked at in this way with so much love and adoration, and he doesn't know how to respond. His cock is hard against his stomach. Damn, Gilbert, shit. Aching in anticipation, and he watches herself undress her undress herself. She begins with her top, unbuttoning it quickly and shrugging it off her shoulders, revealing her large breast to Gilbert, her dark pink nipples also pebbled over, and Gilbert felt his mouth water at the sight. What the fuck? How he wished to run his tongue over. What the fuck? She steps back onto the bed and knees her way over him, stark naked and muscles straining. When her hips just below his, much wider than his own, she reaches her hand over to one of his, still resting above his head. He lifts his head to meet hers and guides it to her crotch. Wait, hand. He lifts her hand. Okay. Fingers grazing, dripping wet. And his breath is knocked out of him. See how wet you've made me, Gil, she says, voice caught on a moan. All we've done is kiss, and I'm already tripping for you. His hand is frozen there, the warmth and wetness overwhelming his senses. He had never been with a woman in this way before, and he already felt like he may reach his peak before they can get far. I've never done this before, Gilbert admits, face burning with embarrassment. I may not last with you in front of me, Lisa. She coos at the word, embarrassing him further, but smiles as she speaks. It's okay, dearest. You can come as much as... He groans in response before curling his fingers inward, touching her gently and delighting in the delectable groan that spills from her. After a few seconds of fondling her pussy with wet I don't think I can make it through this. Before he can respond, she takes his into her, wrapping around him and knocking the wind out of his lungs. She takes her time with him. I don't think I can read this on YouTube. He loudly moans as he feels her swallow around him, throat. I don't know if I can fucking... I can't. I can't. I did my best. This is... How many... It's just 18 pages. It's 18 pages of smut. Yeah, I don't know how to end this. If you want me to read the whole thing or a different fanfic, I guess, comment below. I can't guarantee I get through the whole thing because this one hurt my soul. But yeah. Bye. The fuck?